Hello, this is Kaylee, and you're listening to the ninth episode of the Warrior Painters podcast. At school, art students may learn about different career options in the entertainment industry that come with a stable income. But after working in the industry for a while, many professionals would start exploring art-related side hustles, hoping that one day they can be their own bosses. In this episode, we've invited two artists who have successfully turned their side hustles into something bigger to talk about how they achieved it and what they've learned.
Welcome, everyone. I'm Caroline. A little bit about myself. I'm a fine artist based in Toronto, Canada, and I'm your host today. Today, we're going to talk to Vaughan, Ling and Kirk Shinmoto about side hustles. So, Vaughan, why don't you give us a bit of an introduction of who you are?
I work in animation. I work on TV shows and movies sometimes. I also like doing side stuff. I like having projects because, I get bored sometimes. Yeah, so I've been doing a lot of different projects over the years, sometimes with Kirk. And yeah.
Cool. And Kirk, how about you?
I work in animation and I also teach drawing. Yeah, I teach drawing and a ton of side projects as well. Just like fun, I get bored, and then I guess we get bored together and do do projects and stuff.
So you're both working artists, but what did you want to be when you were little? Was it always being an artist?
Oh, well, when I was little, I wanted to be a paleontologist, I think. Yeah.
What?
After seeing Jurassic Park, yeah. Jurassic Park changed my life.
You wanted to be the old guy in Jurassic Park?
No. No, the main guy.
The main
who
guy.
hates
Oh,
kids.
right.
How about you, Vaughan?
Pretty boring. I wanted to be an engineer, I think. I think my uncle brainwashed me into thinking that engineering was cool because he's an electrical engineer.
Ooh, your uncle was right.
Oh, is that what you were doing?
I was, but here we all are. So
Yeah, there we are. Look at us now.
So today we're going to talk about side hustles, but what is a side hustle? According to some arbitrary definition on the internet, a side hustle is something that you do as a supplemental income to your main income. What would you say, Vaughan, is your main occupation and what you do on the side?
It's all subjective, I think. The main thing I would say is probably teaching right now. And then the other big thing is heavy paint, this program I'm working on. They're both pretty important to me, I guess equally. But I spend way more time on heavy paint than teaching right now.
What are you teaching?
Blender. I teach 3D. Yeah, it's interesting. Spend way more time on heavy paint, but make almost no money on it. So I would say heavy paint is probably the side hustle, the passion project. Yeah.
What about Kirk?
Currently, I am also mainly teaching. And as far as other projects go, there are a number of them up in the air right now. I'm trying to think what I should have thought of this before.
Kirk was doing this like Power Glove thing for
a couple
thing. Weeks.
I was just thinking about that actually, finishing that up. It was this kind of control system for heavy paint, actually.
It's like this plastic yellow box with a bunch of switches and dials and knobs and sliders, and you can like put your hand on it, and it has, is it like 4 or 5 sliders on it?
Yeah, it's got 4 sliders, I think. So you control it with your fingers. It's just so you don't have to click on the sliders manually in heavy paint. So you have it all in your hand here.
Whoa!
And we were eating dinner one night, and Vaughan and I just started talking about it, and I think everyone else thought we were joking, but
I mean, I thought you were joking too. I was like, yeah, that was fun, little thought experiment. And then
like, a week later,
what?
I was like, hey, Vaughan, check this out.
Like, where did you get all those buttons and sliders?
Interesting.
yeah, just a bunch of little projects like that yeah, don't necessarily make money, but they are really fun.
There's the
to put
sculpting
together.
too. Kirk does like resin kits,
Um,
figures.
yeah, 3D printing stuff. So there's like this little torso thing that I made for as an educational supplement to help students visualize like the rib cage and stuff like that. So I guess the side hustle stuff is more kind of making three-dimensional objects.
Interesting. So both of you mentioned that you're mainly teaching right now, and then you've got a lot of side projects going on. But is that what you always wanted to do, to teach? Like, I assume you didn't just end up teaching after working in the animation industry. Like, was your original goal to work to be a studio artist in the industry?
Well, yeah, I think when you're in school, that's kind of the goal. When you're training really hard to be an artist, you are trying to go work, be a professional and everything.
Can I ask how you both ended up teaching?
I started at CDA in Pasadena here in Los Angeles. I was working on a TV show, and then one of my coworkers was going to get lunch with his friend who was a teacher at CDA, and he invited me to go get lunch. And then the teacher was talking, and he was saying like, "Oh, we're trying to switch to start a Moto class at CDA," which Moto is a 3D program that I was using at the time. And then I was like, "Oh, I know that program." And then he said, "Oh, okay, let's get you in touch with Kevin Chen, the guy who runs CDA." And then I met Kevin, and then I was teaching Moto. that was it.
Yeah, for me, I started teaching. This was actually while I was still in school. I there's a school here in LA called the LAFA, the LA Academy of Figurative Art, and one day I just went over there with some drawings and was like, "Hey, could I teach a class?" And I don't know why I did that, but that's how I started teaching. I was teaching there for like 4 or 5 years, I think, and started working, and I've kind of been teaching ever since. So the teaching has been more of a side thing for most of the time on top of work, but now it kind of shifted proportionally to more of the main thing, I guess.
Do you guys always teach the same classes every term, or do you switch it up?
I teach different classes. I think I'm kind of playing with adding different classes to the roster and stuff like that, but I think Vaughan's kind of doing the same classes.
Yeah, I have the same class, but I kind of adjust it every term a little bit and tweak things here and there. Start to notice patterns happening where like students get stuck on a certain thing a lot. Then I'm like, okay, that needs to be worked on. And yeah, just tweaking it. That's like a whole another project, just the curriculum.
Do you ever get bored of teaching the same thing over and over again?
Well, I'll change it if I get bored. Change it. Well, and also it's not exactly the same every time. I'll try like doing the same theme, but a different thing in that theme.
I think the students make it interesting too, because you always have new students, which kind of keeps things fresh.
Yeah.
What are your ultimate goals? Like, is teaching going to be your main thing now, or, in Vaughn's case, heavy paint is his main time-consuming project right now? And Kirk, it sounds like you just have a bunch of projects that you're doing right now. Like, is teaching the thing that keeps you guys able to do your side projects, or are you open to?
I think that's sort of makes sense. Yeah, like teaching is kind of a steady thing that we can do sort of to pay the bills, and then we can do other stuff on top of that too, because teaching, it's only it's not the entire week you're teaching unless you're crazy. It's only a couple days a week. So then the other days you fill it with your other projects.
What would you say is your typical week in terms of the amount of time you spend on each project or teaching?
For me, I think I'm teaching a little bit more than Vaughan right now. I'm running like 4 classes online.
Oh God.
Yeah, which
Four
I was,
classes.
yeah, which is actually pretty light. It feels nice because right before this, the last term I was teaching 7 classes.
Oh no.
Because yeah, I was teaching at Art Center and CDA and online classes, but yeah, now it's pretty relaxed right now. So yeah, it's basically just I'm kind of tinkering all day, and then when I got to teach, I just teach, or sometimes I'm working on class material stuff. I'm kind of just doing whatever I want the rest of the time, whatever kind of catches my interest.
Would you guys say that you ditched a 9-to-5 job to work 24/7 instead?
Actually, yeah, I feel like I do more now than I was when I was working at work. I feel like
Yeah,
I actually get more done and stuff. Like,
I agree.
yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys who are working right now have this feeling of like at a certain point you kind of just start to relax when if you've been at a job for a little while, you just start to kind of,
Oh
I don't
yeah.
know, you kind of slack off eventually. I'm not sure. You feel like that?
Yeah, oh yeah. 4 o'clock comes around and it's hard to work sometimes when you're in that studio environment. Also, I think something about the routine about going in, like, and because it's so stable, makes it kind of, for me at least, yeah, I kind of zone out somehow. Like, I don't know how to explain it.
You're just a horrible employee. That's
Yeah, I
it.
guess so.
Interesting.
I get bored easily. I think that's what it is. Because like when I get onto shows and things, a lot of times like a month in, it's like new and fresh, but then I get kind of bored and kind of want to move on to the next thing, after, because like after like a month, you kind of figure it out and it's like, okay, well then from here it's going to be sort of a lot of the same, and then
Yeah.
I want to go do something else.
So would you say then, Kirk, now that you're, your own boss really, and you somewhat get to choose what you want to teach, I guess, and what side projects you want to do you find it hard to motivate yourself to work?
Not really, actually. It seems easier to get motivated because also because I don't really have a schedule, I'll, when inspiration strikes, I'll just stay up all night, working on something, like, because I know I don't have to wake up at like, 9 or 10 or whatever to get into work, which
I don't have to wake up at 3 p.m.
yeah,
to get into work.
I don't have to get up before the sun comes up the next day.
I don't have to wake up tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly. But like, and there's not necessarily a pressure of like a specific deadline, because I can just focus on getting something to where I want it to be, and then only when I'm really happy with it, like, don't have to worry about putting it out or doing something. So not having that pressure, I think, it can be good and bad, but I think for the most part, it kind of makes the end result more to your liking, or my liking, I guess. Or I feel more satisfied with it, I should say.
Interesting. So Vaughan, I want to ask you more about heavy paint, actually. What made you want to take on this project in the first place?
Well, it's not like I sat down and was like, oh, I'm going to spend the next year and a half working on an app right now. Like, because I'd never done any kind of real programming stuff. I'd done like some scripts and things. But anyway, the reason why I wanted to do it is because I was going out with the Warrior Painters a lot. And, I bought this little Samsung phone with the pen, the Note phone, and I was like, oh, this is super cool. And so I got all the apps and I was painting, but then like there's just little tiny things that I wanted in for plein air painting, and I couldn't find it in any of the apps. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna try to make something, and I just started watching a YouTube, and then that weekend I just had something on my phone that was like doing something. It was just drawing single lines. There was no undo or anything, and that was just very exciting, that it worked, and then it just kept going from there. So I don't know, it's kind of just appeared out of nowhere.
So you kind of went the opposite way with me, I guess, where you started in art, but now you consider like programming, making heavy paint your main thing, whereas I went the opposite way. How long do you think you'll continue heavy paint for?
I can see this going for a long time. Like this is definitely the project I think I'm the most proud of so far, like in my life. And it's also coming up on being the project that I've worked on the longest. Yeah, I could see it going for way longer. There's so much stuff to do, and like people are always giving suggestions or complaining, or something happens, you know. It's always changing, so I'm really excited about it. And I still feel very excited about it, even after a year and a half. I still feel this kind of a passion after so long. And I think a lot of it too is because it's not just me, you know, like I can see people using it all the time, and that's really motivating. Yeah, like every day I'm checking on the paintings that people have done. Yeah, I'm really motivated to keep going on it.
Yeah, we don't need to mention your number one diehard fan on Discord.
Yeah, Mr. Linden.
So Vaughn, you never get burnt out from working on heavy paint.
No, I haven't. It's different. I swear to God, it's very different. It's a very different feeling.
What about you, Kirk? You don't ever get burnt out from teaching, from, you know?
Nope. Again, like I'm working more, but I'm also happier, you know. It's like when I'm doing my own projects, yeah, I just feel like I could just keep going forever, you know, because it's something I want to do, and it's something that just feeds my own like curiosity or you know, that creative itch to do something. So yeah, it's a lot different than doing a studio job. And also, you know, like worked on a lot of projects that's just, you can never show the art anywhere ever because of NDA. And like, even if you thought, oh, that was pretty cool, that thing I did, like nobody's ever going to see it ever, you know, which is kind of sad. I don't know.
You guys mentioned about being bored a lot, going into a new project at work. Like, was it always like that right out of school, or did that boredom develop over time?
I think initially it was really fun. Like, and I had like a really awesome project I was working on, the first gig basically, which maybe kind of spoiled things because after that nothing else was as good. So I was kind of like, is it just gonna, am I never gonna have something like that again? But I mean, there's been a lot of cool stuff. But yeah, I think it took a number of years, but for me at least, for that fatigue to kind of set in. Yeah, there's just other things I was more interested in, I guess.
Yeah, I would say similar. I think we both started around the same time, and also kind of tapered off around the same time, maybe. I remember, well, Kirk is the one that asked me to work on our first project together.
Oh man,
which was this hover bike thing. We made a model kit. Spent about 2 years making this model kit, which was like highly complex. It was like 90 something parts. Little tiny intricate motorcycle parts, like engines and suspensions and all sorts of craziness.
Did anything happen to that project?
Yeah, we did
produced it. Yeah, we got it out there. We sold like 30 kits or something.
Wow.
We sold all the ones that we made, which was like 30.
Yeah. I think it was a lot more than the whole project was a lot more involved than I think we realized. I don't think we knew what we were getting ourselves into.
Yeah.
But that was actually really inspiring because we actually like kind of pushed through and got it done. Like I'm actually really surprised we did that, but it was like
Yeah.
super satisfying by the end. Yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah, it was like 1 year in, like people wouldn't even ask if they saw me. They wouldn't be like, "Oh, how are you doing?" They just be like, "Oh, how's your project doing?" You know, because that's all we were doing all day. Like I would go to Kirk's house at 8 p.m. or so,
Yeah,
and then we work until 3 a.m. Like
yeah.
doing molds and pouring toxic chemicals and mixing fumes and cancer and
Mm.
and then neighbors just see like powder and smoke and like dust coming out of his room and there's like giant ventilation tubes hooked up to his windows. It's crazy.
I'm really proud of like what we did. So
Yeah,
What?
I'm glad we did it because it was like kind of pushing the limits of what we thought we could do. And there were
yeah.
plenty of times where I was like, Kirk, we should just cut our losses and stop. Because we were spending like more and more money on all this equipment and stuff,
Yeah.
materials, and like, you know, sometimes you spend a whole day trying to do something and it doesn't work. And then you feel really defeated. But so yeah, there were plenty of times where I'm like, man, should we just skip this thing or skip that thing? And Kirk would always be like, no, I think we can do it. I'd be like, psycho. But then we ended up doing these things. So it was really kind of surprising.
And we learned a ton too. It was pretty crazy. like 3D printing and mold making and stuff. Like it was, yeah.
Was that the first project that you guys did together?
Yeah, I think
Mm-hmm.
so. Yeah, I think at that time I didn't actually know Vaughan that well. It was just in a workshop. I just asked him like, "Hey, want to do this thing?"
Yeah. Just figure drawing work. We didn't really know each other outside of figure drawing and Conrads. That's it.
Yeah.
Do you guys think that hoverboard project kicked off more ideas that you did subsequently? Or it was like a one-time isolated thing?
No, I think for me at least, like that's kind of taken me down a whole nother path than I thought it would be going down. Because I was actually started that because I wanted to do more traditional sculpture because I was sculpting the figure for that project by hand. But then I ended up learning a ton of 3D to get through like the 3D printing process and stuff. And learning that has kind of influenced how I like other projects that I've started, like the torso thing that I made. Like I probably wouldn't have made that if not for that project. And I learned a ton from Vaughan about like Blender and stuff like that too. So yeah, for me, I think that really sparked like a whole bunch of other things that wouldn't have happened. So.
And then you
What
bought the
about you, Juan?
laser cutter too.
Oh yeah, I got a laser cutter.
Kirk bought a Kickstarter laser cutter. And then he disappeared for like 2 weeks and came out of his room with a whole new model kit. Oh yeah, this is kind of the fun ending to the story is like we spent over 2 years working on this hover bike project, right? And we finally finished. We sold all of them, like many sleepless nights, and we made like almost nothing. Like,
yeah,
we made like 1 cent per hour on it, right? So even though we were selling each kit at like $300 something, which was like, oh wow, so expensive, but we spent 2 years on it. So then right after that project, Kirk gets the laser cutter. He designs this laser cut motorcycle thing, like a flat pack motorcycle that you can just build out of sheets of wood that you laser cut. And then he sells that and makes more money off of that 2-week project than our 2-year project.
Yeah. Oh man, yeah, that was. Oh boy.
Yeah.
But it was all worth it. All the experience is priceless.
Interesting. So from your story, it sounds to me like you guys just enjoyed having been able to work on that project together, and selling it or not selling it, making whatever money, whether or not to break even or to make profit, wasn't necessarily on your mind?
Yeah, not
Well, if it
really.
was on our mind, we would have been sad about it because we were making
Yeah,
like so little.
it's true.
But
Yeah.
no, it's just exciting. It was like very exciting in the moment working on it because you feel like it's kind of like the feeling you have in school when you're doing your final project and you're just like going up to the deadline type of excitement. You have it ready for a show and stuff.
Right. So I'm now perplexed because it sounds like your side hustles, I guess, are projects that they're self-started projects that you just wanted to create because something made you very interested in the idea and you kind of just pursued it. And teaching for both of you sounds like the thing that pays the bills, and that's, making it so that you can afford to do these side projects.
But it's not that we don't enjoy teaching. Like,
Okay.
I feel like teaching
Yeah.
is really a nice thing. Like, it's great and it's very rewarding. Also, I'm really grateful to be able to teach.
Yeah, I mean, I think teaching feeds into the projects we're doing too, because like, that the torso thing I was making, that's part of like my teaching also. And like Vaughan, on top of heavy paint, he also does like the Blender, like the UI interface. He does like he programmed a custom interface for Blender, which he teaches now basically. And
Yeah.
I feel like heavy paint too is also a part of like, people learning and stuff, like teaching people to paint. And
Yeah.
I think it's all kind of interconnected.
Do you guys feel like your current not way of life per se, but like how you allocate your time and making money and all that, do you see it as sustainable, like something that you'll continue to do? Because I know a lot of people would have massive anxiety of not having stability. That's the one thing that like a 9-to-5 job would be able to offer. And you guys, it sounds like your side projects are so rambunctious. It just,
I counter that.
yes,
Because
Vaughn.
9-to-5 jobs are not stable. Actually, this is more stable than 9-to-5 jobs because
Tell us more.
the project can be canceled at any point. You have no control over the project. This stuff you actually have control over. You can, if a problem comes up, you can come up with a solution and fix it. But if at your work, your boss has some problem or somebody higher up has some problem and they can't fix it, then you're screwed. And there's lots of times it's not super uncommon that a project will just die, or you'll spend a few years on something and then it might disappear and nobody will ever see it. So I would say that studio work is not as stable as this.
Also, like for me, it was more of a transition. Like I didn't just drop studio work completely. Like, I was teaching more and more on the side, and eventually I realized like, okay, yeah, this is, I'm kind of building momentum, so I can kind of let go of that. Like, but it's hard. It's hard to let go of that 9-to-5, and I get it. Like it's scary. But I think taking that leap was really good. And yeah, like Vaughn said, yeah, that's actually a really good point. Yeah, I've heard of projects just ending midway. Like you have a week to to get your stuff out of the office, and what do you do then, right? If you don't have something else to fall back on. So I don't know. I do know a lot of people too that, work is really fulfilling, and I know they're really happy and stuff. So I don't want to say like, oh, don't quit your job, kids. Don't aspire for that.
Do you guys have peers who are also like did what you guys did or are thinking about it? Do you see this as a trend for artists?
Basically, everyone that I talk to that works in the industry has had this conversation with me, the same conversation that we're having now. Because it's like I haven't ever met anyone who's like, yeah, I'm gonna do this till I'm 70 years old.
Yeah, I'm gonna work forever. Yeah, no, that's true. Yeah, yeah. I hear a lot of people saying like, oh, I'm gonna take a break, but then the next time I talk to them, it's like, oh, did you take that break? And they're like, nope, another project came up, and I still want to take a break. So yeah, I don't know.
Interesting. So there are a lot of people in your industry feeling burnt out, but not many leave and do their own thing, I guess, is what you're
Yeah.
saying.
I don't know why, because it's doable. I think maybe it's because we're not trained to think that way in school. We're definitely trained to like go to the studio. That's like the whole point of school. So we don't even have that as an option in our back of our head, you know? We're not even thinking about it.
Mm.
And how did you guys save up before making the big leap?
Right. So, okay, I think this whole time we've been sort of bashing the studio system, but honestly, like that's the only way that you can afford to do this in the end. So you do kind of have to put in a few years of work saving up. So then
Yeah.
you can start to maybe transition out slowly. It's not like one day you're like, oh, fuck all this, and then you run off into
Yeah.
it's very like everything is it's not risky at all. It's actually just like calculated steps one after
Yeah.
another. It's not jumping.
It's more about kind of finding the right time to make that transition like into saying no. Because working in the studio also has the benefit of like you learn how to work and stuff, you know, like you're like a professional at that point, so you kind of have that work ethic and that mentality to like get stuff done, which is also important for like doing your own stuff. Like I wouldn't say you should do it right out of school and just do whatever, but because there's a lot of growth you can have in the studio environment, but just know that there are other options beyond that, right? Like that's not the end in itself, but it can be like a means to an end. So yeah.
Cool. Do you guys ever see yourselves returning to a studio artist life?
Could be, maybe.
Yeah, I think I'm not like, no, I'm not going to do it ever again. You know, it's just kind of like if something interesting comes up, I'll probably take it. You know, I'm still open to working and stuff, but it's not something like I'm actively pursuing right now, I guess is the difference.
So what would it take? What kind of project would it take?
Well, for me, basically, it would have to be probably with like the crew that I already know that I've worked with a bunch of times, because I don't want to just go off on some random thing where I don't know anyone. I kind of like have this group that I like to work with. So if they call me again, then I'll probably go, maybe.
For me, it's actually the length of the project. If it's like a short project, I'll definitely be more interested in it. More recently, that's kind of what I was working on before things sort of tapered off, where it was just like, oh, you know, this project is a couple months, like, you know, and at that point I'm like, okay, but I don't necessarily want to sign on for like a 2-year project or something like that.
Yeah.
But just because I get bored easily. So if it's short and sweet, I'd rather have that than like long and kind of the same thing over and over.
Interesting. On that note, have any of you had projects that you started but eventually gave up on?
I have.
Can you tell us about them?
Yeah.
I wanted to do a book for a while. So I was trying to do all these spaceship drawings. I had like 100-something spaceship drawings, and then I just never finished compiling it. And then by the end of the like 100-something drawings, I looked at the first ones and I was like, oh, these are shitty. I want to redo the first ones. So then it's like, what's the point? I don't know. What about you, Kirk?
Yeah, I mean, I have a ton of little like sculpts and models and things that I started on. I'm just like, I just didn't finish, like for whatever reason. I either got bored of it or moved on to the next thing, or yeah, you just look back if this doesn't look good, so you just move on to something else. And you know, I just save those things because sometimes they do come back, you know. So
do you ever have moments of self-doubt then, especially when these projects kind of fall apart, and then do you start questioning, what am I doing with my life? What's the point? Do you get existential?
At this point, I feel like it's too late for that. I'm already here, so yeah, I'm not really worried about my choices. I'm pretty happy with where it's led me so far.
Yeah, I definitely get that feeling, but it's very much a passing feeling. Like you kind of just sit back and like look at something and just think, what the? And then you can just take a break from it too. Like then come back the next day and like get remotivated or something. Like you're always going to run into snags or hiccups, but if it's something you're excited about, like you always come back, come back for more, I guess. I don't know.
Interesting. Do you guys feel like you work better by yourself then, as opposed to in a team? Because what you're doing now is quite solitary.
Yeah, I definitely feel most comfortable working on my own or maybe with one other partner. And yeah, it's a personality thing. So I know a lot of people that really enjoy having a team around them, and like, they want to socialize more, and yeah, the teamwork thing is really important for a lot of artists. So yeah, I can understand it's a different type of a feeling, but I personally really like working alone.
Yeah, yeah. I think I work best alone too. Like, but I would say like the one thing I do miss about the studio job is going in and seeing friends and stuff and like seeing what cool things people are doing. Because it's a little hard to access that now. Well, I mean, it's not that everyone's posting everywhere, right? But like, at least on the project, you get to see things you wouldn't normally see. So I do miss that aspect of it. Just
That's
seeing
true.
cool art and getting inspired by it.
I would say I'm the same, but I don't know if you guys ever feel like this, but for me, when I'm in the studio too long and just trying to work on paintings and trying to get ideas, I kind of feel like ideas don't just appear out of nowhere. Like I feel like being outside and interacting with people or living life comes back to my art in that stuff just happens and it sparks ideas. Do you guys ever
Mm.
like set a time for that during your week to kind of just live a little and not do any work related things?
I agree with that. Like you
Yeah.
do need to find inspiration outside. A similar situation to when you're working, because if you are working in a big studio job,
Ah,
you do spend most of your time there. So you also have to like get out of the studio, right? To like be inspired sometimes. But yeah, we definitely do have to get out and walk around, go for walks and stuff.
do you find your social life harder to manage not working at a studio?
Um, I would say that when you get away from the studio, new social opportunities pop up. It's kind of weird because what starts happening is you're kind of alone at first, but then you start realizing, hey, wait, there's a few people that are also in the same situation as me. And then you kind of automatically become friends with all those people because you're the only ones that are like around during the day. Everybody else, it's like two different worlds. There's like people that are working and then people that are like doing other stuff. And so you find those groups, you find like different like areas, I guess, to call home. And you also save a lot of time like not commuting too if you're working from home.
Oh
So
yeah.
that's like a lot of time in the day that you are freed up with, so you can you can socialize with that time or do whatever stuff.
Yeah, and then like Vaughan would host like work days at his place. So like every Friday before the quarantine and stuff, yeah, every Friday a bunch of us would get together and just work on our own projects. And that's actually really inspiring too. Like just that, I guess that feeds that need to kind of see what other people are working on and seeing cool stuff.
Yeah. It's a little unemployed gathering, and it's also nice because sort of a we had like a programmer guy, my friend Devin, who's he works on college essay prep, and then Kaylee was there. So there's like a nice variety of people that are in the same situation, but we're all linked together by this unemployed
Unemployment?
type thing. But it's cool because maybe sometimes at work you don't get that diversity.
Yeah.
You kind of your all your friends are work friends sometimes, or like they're all in like the same department or the same type of thing?
Yeah, there is a lot of bouncing of ideas off of each other. Yeah, like talking to your friend Devin, who does like the college courses, like that kind of influenced how I run some of my classes and stuff, or it kind of brought up some new ideas about promoting it and stuff like that. So I think having that diversity does kind of open your eyes to new ways of doing things, and like it's been good. It's been great.
Yeah,
So,
definitely.
How are you guys doing that now that it's COVID quarantine time?
We're not really doing
yeah, I guess we haven't done it.
Well, the Warrior Painters group is kind of like that. Everyone's in the same situation, and we're all sitting here chatting and stuff. Yeah, I would say it's similar feeling. Yeah, because watch when people start getting jobs in the Warrior Painters, because I know a lot of you guys are students or you're training and stuff. When you start getting jobs and disappearing, it's gonna be like ghost town here. Who's gonna be left to talk?
Yeah, that's true. Who's going to be
And
unemployed with us?
that's a little bit sad, you know.
Well, the three of us sounds like
We'll
we'll be
still
around.
Yeah.
Okay, so going back to the side projects, what are some of the things that you've learned from doing your side hustles? Like, is passion more important than making money for the two of you?
Well, the way I think about money is money is just time. So as long as you have enough money / time to continue doing what you're doing, then you don't need to worry about it. I don't really spend money on anything other than just food and living stuff. I don't buy any crazy stuff. So yeah, it's time. I forgot what the question was. Sorry.
What are some of the things that you've learned?
The things that I've learned. Kirk can go. I don't know.
It was a lot easier to do than I thought it would be. I think that's the biggest thing, because I think, yeah, that initial worry about like leaving the job was a big thing for me, at least. But yeah, more time. I feel like I'm getting more done, and I just generally feel happier and kind of more fulfilled with like doing the things I like to do, I guess.
So suppose someone else finds themselves in a similar boat you guys were and just getting tired of the studio grind, but they haven't done teaching before, or maybe they don't want to teach. What other things could they do that's like pays the bills but still?
They could make Procreate brushes. I hear that does pretty well. I heard that people make millions of dollars doing that. So if you want to, that's like something easy that you could do and just get rich off of that. Probably anyone can do it. There's a lot of things you could do. I mean, like doing art is probably one of the most inefficient ways to make money, like based on the effort that you put in. So yeah, just keep an open mind. And I don't know, I don't know the answers. It's a hard question.
Yeah,
we were trying to figure that out for a long time.
Yeah,
but if you have that idea, I mean, I think that's a good idea to at least start thinking about it.
Yeah, I think just having like an open mind to things, like something I tell students a lot is like, don't like teaching at art center, especially because everyone goes there they're so laser focused on like making a portfolio to get a very specific job in the industry. But like, I think it's better to have kind of a broader interest and just like making the art and doing the thing, because that will kind of keep your mind open to opportunities if they come up. Because yeah, the job isn't everything. Like once you start working, you kind of see how things work. And I think a lot of artists that I talk to also working, like they have that similar mindset of like, oh yeah, I'm going to work and then kind of do my own thing after I'm done working. But kind of what I started to see was like the cycle doesn't really end like when you start working, because it's one project to the next, and it's like, well, when are you going to take a break? And it's so hard to say no when like when an opportunity comes up, like you just fall into that pattern, and then eventually kind of your personal project kind of gets pushed off to the side. So I think that's something that a lot of people are actually interested in that I've seen, but it is hard to like to ride that, go in that direction. So as far as like making a living off of it, I don't know. it, I've been doing okay, like, but you just got to kind of find something that you're both passionate about and that I think other people are interested in. And I think a lot of the things like Vaughan and I are doing is something that kind of feed both of those. Like teaching is one of them. Teaching is a big thing because everyone wants to learn, and you're helping other people, and like you can support yourself with it, and but that might not be for everyone, I guess. Yeah.
How does your for both of you, how does your income from teaching compare to your income from working in a studio?
For me, actually, it's more. I'm actually getting paid more than I am than I would be for the studio job. I guess the only difference is that if you're on a guild project, you get like health benefits and stuff like that. But
is that not a thing that you care about?
Benefits? Well, I mean, I can just pay for it now, I guess.
Can afford to have it.
Yeah.
Yeah, similar for me too. I guess it's about the same, but I am working less, I guess, on the teaching than I would be at a studio. So that gives me more time to work on heavy paint or whatever it is, the other thing.
So there's a question in the chat that says, does having an industry experience and some big studio names on your resume, does that help getting more students for teaching?
Well, I don't think it hurts.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think the industry experience is actually kind of important because for me, a lot of the students I get are actually interested in doing animation and stuff. So I teach a lot of foundation classes, and I always kind of bring it back like to why this is important for your job, and I can give them like specific job related like experiences or advice that I think I actually didn't get a lot of in school. So I think it does help. Well, I don't know about having more students. I think that's just based on your work if people like what they see, but it can enhance the experience.
Are there any other artists or non-artists who, had side hustles that eventually turned into their own thing that inspired you to do this?
I mean, usually people will go from being a studio artist to eventually they'll be like a big shot director or maybe a showrunner or something like that, right? I don't know. I don't know too many people that like, I guess, want to do art as like small business type of a thing. But I think that is great. Like more people should do it. I think it's a good option.
Yeah.
I would say personally, I didn't really have like a mentor that guiding me through this stuff. Nobody in my family really has a business. I don't really know that many business owner people.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I can't really think of anyone that was like an inspiration to do it. It's like Vaughan said, like there actually aren't many people in the art industry that did just kind of leave and do their own thing. So there wasn't anyone that I saw that was like, oh, I should go and do that too. But it just kind of happened, I guess.
I've always been interested in this stuff though. And I always like try to read books about it, entrepreneurship and small business and blah, blah, blah. So I've been like studying it sort of on my own.
Because some of our listeners might feel inspired by you guys to also be unemployed and do their own thing.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope at least like to think of it as an option, because otherwise you can feel kind of trapped into a very narrow field,
Yeah. And it's hard to like another part of the studio job is like you spend all your energy at work, and then even if you want to do your own stuff after work, like a lot of times you're just too tired to work on anything. Like I know a lot of people they don't draw when they come home, because they're so drained from work that they just don't have the energy. So it kind of like it feeds into that cycle again where you can't escape it, you know.
Do you guys have any tips on how to develop a side hustle and moving it from just like a passion project to something bigger?
Yeah, I think, well, actually there was one book that got me started thinking about this stuff more seriously. And I don't know if it really applies fully, but there was some good tips in there. It's called The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss. So, I mean, it's basically a book about Amazon drop shipping, which is not what we're doing. But there's like the mindset is very interesting because you read it and you're like, oh, it's that easy to do that, or like, oh, that makes sense. I never thought of it that way. And there were lots of little things in there where I was like, it made me think a little bit on how to, I guess, make a plan and stuff. And so yeah, I recommend reading that book if you're interested in doing any kind of side thing. Also, I think that when you're at a studio is a good time to think about these things too, because you have that passion because you're working all day and you're doing that stupid commute every day, and all that time that you're sitting there in the car in traffic, you should be thinking about like, what's your next thing going to be, you know? It's like, that's your motivation.
How am I going to escape?
Yeah, how am I going to escape this traffic? You have to be thinking about it. It's not easy. Oh, also a big thing is, well, this is a tricky one. Just learning how to say no to stuff is really, really important. Super important skill, because that's the cycle that Kirk's talking about, like where you're like, oh, you know, I'm going to work on my project someday. But if you never learned how to say no, you're never going to get the chance to work on that project, because something will always come up and you'll always say yes. And you'll never have reserved the space for yourself. You need to actually reserve, you know, like put it in your schedule, like, hey, this is my time here. So you have to like kind of treat it like a job too. So I would suggest you guys, if you have trouble with that, just try saying no to like some little things, like not a job offer, but like something tiny. Just try it out. Just say no to something. Like, do you want whipped cream with that? No.
I do want whipped cream, but no. No whipped cream. Yeah. Also, just jump in. You might fail, but like, I think it's better to kind of go for things a little bit than to plan things out too much, because you don't know what's going to happen. Like, you can't plan for every like situation. So, like, for example, when I was teaching, when I decided to put up online classes, like initially I was spending like weeks like planning out my classes and doing all these things. And like, okay, eventually when I get this stuff perfect, I'm going to put it up there. But then I realized like, this is just taking forever. So one day I just I made a Gumroad and put up the schedule and stuff for it. And I hadn't had everything planned out at that time, but I just got to put something up there. And like if I hadn't have done that, it would have taken me a lot longer to finally like do that, but it ended up working, because you put it up there and you kind of have to think on your feet a little bit, because like people started signing up and then like, I have like, a few weeks to get everything done. But having that pressure, I think like, I mean, yeah, I managed to pull it off, but like, yeah, I think kind of like sitting around mulling it over is also kind of a trap too, because you can just think about it forever, but putting it into action is important. But just know that you might fail, because that's also happened too. Bad things.
Yeah.
But that's okay, because you can always do a different thing or try again. And some of these things, it builds up over time too. Like the more you do it, people start to take notice, but it might not necessarily happen overnight. But if you just start something going, that's better than nothing, right?
Also, I think if you're doing this stuff too, you kind of have to be consistent on social media stuff too, which I know a lot of people hate social media, like it's a drag, but you sort of have to do that if this is what you want to do as a living. You have to put yourself out there, I guess.
Cool.
Yeah, marketing.
I wanted to ask if you guys have any new projects in mind for the next year or after that.
I kind of want to maybe start working on a video game at some point. I think would be fun.
Ooh.
But there's still a lot of work to do on heavy paint, and I don't think that's ever gonna stop. But I think that would be like a nice treat of a project, like something really fun.
What kind of a game would you want to make?
I have a couple ideas. One was like a hover racing game, kind of like Wipeout, but with realistic physics, because a lot of these hover games, they have arcade physics, but I want to make like a Gran Turismo style hover racing game. So it'd be like, I don't know, something like that maybe, or something like StarCraft.
Oh man.
Someone in the audience is asking, when are we gonna get heavy paint MMO?
Heavy paint MMO. Oh yeah, I think multiplayer would be cool in heavy paint. For sure.
Oh man, collaborative painting.
Absolutely nothing's gonna go wrong from that.
Yeah, like one player gets the eraser, one player gets undo. One person, yeah.
What about you, Kirk? Any new ideas or new projects?
Right now, actually, I'm kind of trying to get more Gumroad videos out or to do more Gumroad videos, because I have like all my live classes, but I'm trying to, I started putting out like audit classes and stuff, but I'm trying to do more kind of smaller chunks of things just to make teaching accessible to people, because I know there's just like a few classes. Yeah, that's the main thing I'm kind of focusing on right now to get out. Well, actually, I'm going to be moving soon, so I'm hesitant to start new things right now, just because I know I have to pack stuff up. So,
Oh no.
Yeah, there's some like 3D things I'm working on, like some like actually more resin kits that I want to make that I've kind of started on, but I don't know if I can take them further for right now.
You have to build all your model kits someday too.
Oh yeah, and then I have model kits. I got things to do for the rest of my life.
Yeah, he's all set.
Yeah, got it all planned out.
Last question before we end today's podcast. You guys are so preoccupied with your teaching and side projects. Do you still make time to practice how to keep improving as artists in terms of skill? Do you guys, is that a thing that you still set time aside for?
For me, it's kind of like a treat. Whenever I finish a new feature in heavy paint, I get to do a painting and I get to like play around with it, and that's really fun. So yeah, it's kind of nice, because when I'm painting now, I feel like, oh yeah, I'm painting, but I'm also, testing. So I'm kind of killing two birds with one stone sort of a thing. Yeah.
What about you, Kirk?
Yeah, I mean, like when I'm teaching classes and things, a lot of the prep work is me kind of re-reviewing actually a lot of like anatomy and things like that. And again, I teach a lot of foundational classes, so I'm like actually just constantly looking at foundational things. I think it's kind of built into the process of creating stuff. Like the way I look at drawing is it's just how you communicate and sort of think out loud. At least for me, like if there's something else I want to do or a new project, I'll usually start by drawing stuff out. And like, it's not really about maybe getting better at drawing so much as it is like figuring out how to communicate things through the drawing. I don't know. That makes sense, but yeah,
So
I think
guess,
it's all tied
continue.
together. Yeah, no, yeah.
Right. So it's not a conscious effort like, oh, today I have to finish, 10 master paintings in heavy paint. It's more like integrating that into what you're already doing anyway.
Yeah, I think it comes down to that sort of.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thank you both for doing this podcast today. I think that's all the questions. Last thoughts? I don't know. Quit your job, be unemployed, join the rest of us.
Don't quit your job right away, but
Yeah.
maybe start thinking about it.
Yeah, I think we need more like personal art in the world, like more original art, that people are doing for themselves rather than
I agree,
a company
Kirk.
or something. Yeah. So
Very good point, Kirk. Things that you're
Um,
making because it matters to you and not
exactly.
because-
Yeah.
Yes.
YOLO. Right.
Yeah.
Oh no, cut that out. Cut that out. That didn't happen.
Hope you enjoyed this podcast. If you have any suggestions, please leave your comments on whichever platform you are listening with. And if you like this podcast and other events we organize, please consider donating to us on Gumroad. You'll find a link in the description. Thank you and hope to see you again soon.